Brilliance Audio presents The Wrong Sister by T.E. Woods, performed by Angela Daw. I'd been in a police station before. When I was 10, I'd left my bike propped against a tree while I ran into the neighborhood library to return some books. I figured it would take less than a minute, and I didn't want the hassle of locking it up. But Marianne Dunnick was at the return desk, trying to impress the librarian by naming all the state capitals. Marianne sat next to me in Mrs. Asher's 5th grade class, always trying to get me in trouble passing notes or copying off my papers. She once made up a rumor that George Leicester kissed me on the spring field trip to Camp Randall Stadium. That was a stinking lie, and she knew it. I remember being so angry I could have punched her right in that pearl-button nose she was so proud of. When I complained to my dad, he told me to rise above it. He says things like that a lot. I know what he meant by that now, what with my 30th birthday coming up fast, but back in 5th grade, when somebody said you kissed a boy, well, there was no rising above that. That kind of wound sticks. From that day forward, I've had to willfully remind myself that anything bad happening in the world, from Ebola outbreaks to that whole Real Housewives TV franchise, isn't necessarily the work of Marianne Dunnick. Anyway, back to my earlier visit to a police station. Like I said, my in-and-out plans for dropping off the library books got thwarted by my smart-ass classmate showing off, so I took a detour to the library shelves holding all the biographies. I loved that section. Still do. Pick a person, any person, and there's their life, all laid out in 400 or fewer annotated pages. I made like I was looking for a book, but I kept my eye on Marianne. She was taking her own sweet time. By the time she left and I got my books turned in, someone had helped themselves to my dented-up red Schwinn. After my dad got finished giving me the what for losing something he'd spent good money on, he made me go to the station with him to file the report. I remember the policeman being a whole lot nicer than my dad had been about it. He laid a big hand on top of my head and told me how sorry he was that my bike had gone missing. It didn't go missing, I remember thinking. Someone took it. And if I were you, I'd go straight to Virginia Terrace and knock on Marianne Dunnick's door. That was 20 years ago. I never did see that bike again. And I never again saw the inside of a police station either. Until today. This time, the policeman wasn't so nice. I guess you really can't expect that when he's asking you about a murder.
I don't have time for long walks around complicated explanations.
He said his name was Detective Andy Anderson. Why would somebody do that to their kid? He was skinny, in that way men who run marathons are. Like you can see the bones under their skin, and all you want to do is run out and buy him a hamburger. Extra cheese and bacon with a double order of fries. He had a tight buzz cut. Maybe he figured he could shave a half-second off his time if he wasn't burdened with hair.
We've got a dead body, and there are laws against wasting police time.
I'm not sure how long I'd been at the station, or what time it was earlier that day when I'd heard loud pounding on my front door. Remembering it is like trying to read a newspaper in the fog. 2 policemen stood on my front stoop and asked if I'd allow them to drive me downtown. I wasn't sure what the reason was, and while the officers were polite, they gave me the impression that declining their invitation wasn't an option. When I'd arrived and Detective Anderson had told me what they were investigating, my fog disappeared faster than you could say yikes. Murder isn't part of our regular doings here in Madison, Wisconsin. Around here, the biggest crime is offending someone's sensibilities. When the officers first brought me in, 3 detectives sat me in this small room, asked a whole lot of questions, and listened to what I had to say while they scribbled notes on little pads. After they heard my story, I couldn't tell if they were disappointed or confused. 2 of the detectives left, saying they'd check things out. Andy Anderson remained, telling me we'd both stay put until they
see what we're dealing with here.
After Anderson warned me about wasting police time, he left me all alone. I thought about getting up, heading home, and waiting to see if they'd come for me again, but I've seen enough television shows to know that someone was watching me behind the giant mirror on the far wall. So I sat there, getting to know every inch of that room. About an hour later, the door opened and Anderson walked back in, this time with a woman. She didn't look much older than me. Mid-30s, maybe.